All right, hopefully that works. All right, so almost all the groups were able to upload it to Heroku. That's why I said, when you start your project, make sure the first thing you do is connect it to Heroku and set up your database, because configurations usually take a lot more time than actual coding. So that's why when I do a project, I always make sure that I'm able to upload something to my cloud environment for you guys as Heroku. Okay, so set up your database, set up your Heroku configurations, your CI/CD tools. Make sure anything that you push to your master, it gets uploaded, and like a hello world program is visible on your Heroku server. Okay. Um, the next thing is, let me change this. Some of the other things that I've noted, presentations were good, but I want you guys to be a little bit more confident. Maybe it's talk clearly, especially in the mic. It's kind of sometimes hard to hear what somebody's saying or what you're trying to showcase, especially switching between people. Make sure you practice if somebody is going to talk something and the other three people are going to say something different. So make sure you guys are in sync with this. To me, sometimes I feel like some of the groups were like totally out of sync and they're like looking at each other, be like, hey, is this us? I don't know. Were you going to say something? But just make sure, put in some time, practice, make sure everybody is clear on what they're going to say. For until project 2, I have not enforced this, but in project 3, this is going to happen. One of your grading of your projects, the requirement is that everybody in the group needs to present something. Okay, I haven't enforced it yet, but in project 3, it's a little bit more challenging. So I want to make sure, I'm going to make it clear that everybody, if it's a group of 4 people, I want everybody to say something. Okay, everybody to present something. So make sure you divide the work, divide the presentation within your group also. Okay, for now it's okay, but for project 3, I'm going to enforce that as well. Okay. Um, the next thing is, the first thing, if you look at my authentication repo that I shared with you guys, I had a README. I think it was pretty clear. People were able to follow it, right? Did anybody has any difficulty following it? If you actually read the documentation. So I want you guys to start looking into some README templates and see how your GitHub READMEs are done. Okay. I still feel like some groups are lacking those. It's not clear what's going on. I know your code is there, it runs and everything, but GitHub README is a really good way to make sure that anybody who's looking at your profile, anybody who's looking at your GitHub project is able to understand what's going on, or how do I download your code and start running it. Okay, there are really good templates that you can look into for your README files, or you can look into my project and see I've followed some of those templates. Your how do I install, how do I download, what does it do, and all that stuff. Okay, so I would especially recommend start from your homework. Make sure you have a good README file that when I go through it, I'm able to understand what's going on in your GitHub repo. Okay, login, people had a login. Make sure you always provide a test login so that it kind of saves the process of signing up and all that stuff. Couple of groups did it, some of you guys didn't do it, but make sure next time if you have authentication, make sure to provide the link and also a test login. Okay, like a password and a login that we can enter your website with. All right. The last one is good, but it's still a bit tricky. Do check out the website scotch.io. I've seen a lot of people kind of posting what they learned from their project. It doesn't have to be coding related, but let's suppose since I did the authentication part, that would be a good candidate that I can upload it to scotch.io so that anybody else, if they're looking for passport authentication and all this stuff, it would be a good article that somebody can go and read it. If you guys did something that you want to share, take a look at this website. You can post your learnings or coding or techniques on this site. Okay. The next steps. All right. I know I keep saying that. I'll still keep saying that until you guys are graduated and gone from here. Please make sure update your LinkedIn. This is a good time. If you haven't already, you guys have already done. I'm going to go through the next steps for week 18 to 24. You will see all of those stuff is especially bonus stuff, right? You already know Node.js, you know JavaScript. That should be good enough for you guys to actually sit in an interview, solve some problems, and all this stuff. Okay, so make sure you update your LinkedIn. Check with Amber. She's a career coach, and that's actually her job, to kind of help people with their resumes and with their LinkedIn. So please make good use of it. I looked at her profile. She has a lot of experience doing this. Check her LinkedIn profile, see how she has done it. Kind of copy that template. See how people are doing it or how previous graduates have done it. Make sure that your LinkedIn is updated. Okay. LinkedIn is so important that I would say your LinkedIn should be updated first before your resume. These days, people already, when you send a job posting, recruiters are actually looking at your LinkedIn to see, oh, what's going on and everything. Okay, so make sure your LinkedIn is updated. The last one, recommendations. This is one of the other things that I do. That's why I create the first two project groups, so that you guys get to know each other. You already have like almost 25 connections right here. You can ask for recommendation, people with different groups that you have worked with. Those recommendations are public and they kind of show up on your LinkedIn profile. It's nice to have. Again, it's good to have for people who have less experience who are trying to come into the industry, right? For you guys. Um, I've given out recommendations, but I only give out when somebody actually asks me. And it's not that I give any negative recommendation, but I'm actually honest about when I'm giving recommendations. So you can look at my previous students and see what recommendations I have given. But I only give out when somebody sends me a request. Okay. So do consider when you have updated your LinkedIn, see if you can get recommendations from your peers, TAs, or myself. Okay. All right. So what is remaining? So we have, starting today, we have 7 weeks left, right? The last 2 weeks are project weeks. So 23 and 24 don't even count those. So we have like lessons, 5 lesson weeks left. Okay, this week we are going to work on MongoDB, so that would strike the M from the MERN stack. All right. This whole 3 days we're going to look at Mongo. We're going to install. We're going to work with Mongo. We're going to look at how the queries are built in Mongo. Then we are going to write some code using Node.js and Mongo connected. Okay. And then week number 19, 20, and 21 is all React. Okay. Um, it's interesting that every time I teach this cohort, every 6 months, React comes out with new features. Okay, even if they're not in the course, if they're not in the course structure, I still go ahead and make sure that every cohort that I'm teaching, they know all the new features that React has. Okay, it's the same thing. This time also, React has, if you have any experience with React or actually looked at their documentation, they have introduced something called React hooks. So I plan to cover that as well. I want to make sure that you guys, when you guys leave, you are updated with the latest React thing. Okay. The lesson over here is also that if you once you graduate, React is adding stuff. So please make sure you are updated with all the new stuff, right? They keep coming out of a new version every like 6 months or something. Like 6 months to a year, they come out with a new version and they add some more stuff. So please make sure that you are updated with all whatever they are coming up with. Okay, especially if you're working with the MERN stack or if you're looking for a job in that stack. The thing is, even if you have not work with the latest features, make sure you have a knowledge, like a reading knowledge, that you have run through the documentation. Because in an interview, they might ask, hey, do you know this new feature in React? Um, you have to be honest. The answer should be, well, I haven't worked on it, but I know what it is, right? And you should be able to explain. I've done this with Java. When they came out with new version with Java, they had some features. I never had a chance to professionally work on it, but I went through the documentation. When somebody used to ask me, I would say, well, I haven't used it at my job yet because we don't have that version, but I know these are the features and this is how they work. Okay, so you should be able to, if you haven't worked on those, you should be able to actually explain them. All right, that's the minimum requirement. And the thing is, if you say, well, I don't know, but you are coming out and saying, hey, well, I'm kind of focused on React and this is what I'm going, this is my skill set. but I'm not keeping up with it, kind of gives a bad impression. Okay, so make sure about that. So as I said, usually React is 3 weeks, but I'm kind of changing some stuff. I am preparing, well, I do have some material already prepared for React. So it's going to be a good lecture. I'm going to expand it to 3 weeks. I'm going to make sure that I cover just not the basic React, also a little bit of the advanced React. You might not use it in your project, um, but it is good to know what React is offering. Okay. Um, the last week, week number 22, I'm going to cover some of the algorithms, some of the sorting algorithms, searching algorithm. Those are the algorithms that are taught when you take a CS 101 or a data structure course. So we'll briefly go over those things. We'll talk about what big O notations is. It's kind of popular. If you're interviewing for a little bit more high profile software company, they would ask about big O like every single time. Okay. We'll talk about what big O is. At least you will have some knowledge what those are. We'll talk about data structures, and all of these are related using JavaScript, so you don't have to learn anything new. Okay. The good thing about these algorithms is it's more like a concept, and then you can code it in any language you want. Okay, Java, C Sharp, JavaScript, everything, they all have the same concept. It's just the way the syntax is different, but everything else remains the same. Okay. Any questions so far? Any clarification? Anything else? Okay. So just to tell you guys, we are going to start Mongo today. It's going to end today's Thursday, Saturday. It's going to end on Tuesday. On next Thursday, we are going to start week number 19. Okay. So you have class on Thursday and Saturday. So week number 19, day 1 and day 2 of React. Well, day 1 won't actually be React. I want to go over some concept before we jump into React, because I want those are mostly like JavaScript concepts, a little bit more advanced, but React uses them a lot. So I want to make sure you guys understand before using React. But after Saturday, next Saturday, you have like 2 weeks off. We don't have a class 2 weeks. If you look at your BCS calendar, we'll have a class like next Saturday. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with some basic React. Please make sure make good use of those 2 weeks. I know it's holidays and everything, but we're almost there. Okay. Plan those 2 weeks out. See if you can look into some React documentation if you're already a little bit comfortable with JavaScript, Node.js, APIs. Um, I would I would like you guys to actually look into the React documentation a little bit more advanced that what I cover, so that you guys, when you come back, you have some little bit more knowledge. Okay. But if not, then I would definitely recommend going back to JavaScript, making sure your fundamentals, your foundations are clear, solving some coding questions, lead code, and doing all those stuff. Okay, once we get to a little bit closer, I'll talk a little bit more so that it's kind of fresh in your mind. Okay. Um, Now, as I said on Tuesday, I've heard this a lot. Every single cohort, I hear this. There are people who say, "Hey, well, I'm kind of like behind, but I'm just waiting. Once this course is over, I'm going to go back, start from day one, and I'm going to go through all these lectures." It's not going to happen. I'm telling you, it never happens. Once you are out of this program, it's really, really difficult for somebody to kind of go back and start from the beginning. Like, okay, now I'm going to sit down, I'm going to go through all of this stuff. It's not going to happen. Okay, so please make sure you have access to the TAs, myself. Make sure you take good advantage of these remaining 7 weeks. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. So almost there. Just make sure you are clear. Start applying to your jobs. The interview process kind of takes a while. If you apply now, it might take few weeks when they come back to you, right? So if you're afraid that, well, they're going to ask me React questions, by the time you get an interview call, you'll probably have a good understanding of React, or we would have already started React. So I would recommend put React over there on your resume, apply it. If you are that worried that you're going to get a call tomorrow, then I would recommend go to the React documentation and read through it. You already have JavaScript knowledge. You should be able to recognize and see how it is working. It's JavaScript library. It's nothing different from what we have studied. Okay. Uh, let's see. All right. Before I proceed and start the lecture, Vic, any questions? Anything related to job search or project? Yes.
What would you say is like the best way to keep things fresh? You redo the old activities of JavaScript,
Yeah.
code wars. Like what do you think?
Just it's practice. You just have to keep going. Now you did your project, right? You did the authentication part, right? Did you actually understand the authentication, or did you just right? So that's you have to go back and do it. If I wouldn't have done that project for you, you guys would have eventually done it, but with a little bit more time. But just take advantage. Just go back and look at the authentication and try to recreate it on your own. It's very important. And project 3, authentication is like is a requirement. You guys will have to do it. So you can use Passport. There's a different library called Auth0, and we'll go through it. But that's a good starting point. If you think you're good with JavaScript and all, go back and redo the authentication, see, and make sure you understand everything that has been done over there. There's nothing that I have done on my own. It's everything is there in the documentation for Passport. I just copied from there. Okay, that would be a good starting point. Good question. Anything else? Good. Right. Again, as I mentioned, if you guys need something, please go back and look at the Passport authentication. Authentication is a important topic. I don't have anything like a lecture dedicated to it. But go back to my code, look at the documentation, and see how you would do it on your own. Okay, at least understand what the code is doing, not on a high level, like a depth. Like you actually should know what the function is doing and why that function is required over there in that Passport documentation. Okay. All right. So MongoDB. What is MongoDB? MongoDB is a popular NoSQL database. Now, have you covered any other NoSQL database? Firebase, right? So MongoDB kind of follows the same pattern as Firebase. Firebase is also a NoSQL database. Same with MongoDB. Now, what do NoSQL databases mean? Means that they don't have tables, they don't have columns, they don't have rows, they don't have relations, those kind of stuff, right? You cannot use your SQL queries to query a NoSQL database. There's a different mechanism, and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so NoSQL database, especially MongoDB, they are also called document-oriented databases. And why? Remember, in your SQL databases, a record is called a row, right? A row is basically a record, right? In when we talk about NoSQL databases, the record is referred to as a document. Okay, and it is referred to as a document. Why? Because of the third point. Those are JSON, right? Those are JSON. It's JSON object. That's how they store the data. So those JSON objects are referred to as documents in your NoSQL databases. Okay. Now, when it comes to MongoDB, they use a format called BSON, just like JSON. It's not anything different. It's called binary JSON. That's what it is. The only thing is they're compact and they're compressed. When you look at it, you will not find any difference. It's all behind the scenes. That's how MongoDB stores. But it's good to know that MongoDB is storing your data in a BSON format. Okay, and B stand for the binary. Basically, they are compressed JSON. But when you look at the data, you will still see JSON objects and everything. Okay, behind the scenes, that's how the data is stored. All right. Now, MongoDB is just like SQL. Just when you use MySQL, you can use MySQL in Node.js. That's how we use. You can use MySQL in Java, C#, C++, any other language. Same as that, MongoDB can be used in your Node.js, C++, Java, C#, and everything. So we are going to look at Node.js part, and we are going to connect our Mongo database with Node.js app. Okay, just like MySQL. All right. Let's see. Okay. Remember when we talk about SQL databases, as I said, we have a database, we have a table, we have columns, and then we have rows. Okay, you can have multiple tables in your database, right? And then how do you connect those tables? You use joins, right? We have our left join, right join, inner join. Those are the two. Those are the things that you use to combine data between two tables. Okay. Now this is kind of a little bit different when it comes to NoSQL databases. There are no tables, there are no columns, there are no rows, and there are no joins, there are no different tables. Okay. Usually the related data is all kind of embedded in your JSON, and that's how you query your NoSQL databases. Okay, so there are no joins in your NoSQL databases. If there is any relationship between your tables, and I'll use the correct word in a then basically what it is, it's embedded JSON. You'll have an embedded object. For example, the author over here is kind of embedded inside this same thing. Okay, you will have post. Your posts would be embedded in the same object. All right. So there's no like relationship between two different tables in NoSQL databases. Now, are we going to have different? We'll talk about it in a bit. But that's how NoSQL databases are. Okay. But they do have structure. It's not that they're unstructured and it's everything is like the Wild West. That's not how it is. They do have a structure. They now the right terminology is first. Remember, in SQL we create a database. Same over here in MongoDB, you're going to create a database. Right now, when it comes to SQL, once we have a database, we create tables. Right, there are no tables. Instead, it's called collection. Okay, they are same as if you want some kind of relationship between between SQL and a NoSQL database. Collection is roughly a table. Okay, so you can have multiple collections. All right, we'll see what it means and what those are. But a collection is something similar to a table in your SQL databases. Okay, once you have a collection, a record or a row would be called a document in your NoSQL databases. Okay, and the columns are called fields in your NoSQL databases. So what are the fields over here? Just like your JSON document, patient ID is a field, patient name, age, and all of these are called fields when it comes to NoSQL database. When we talk about SQL database, these fields are what do they become? What do they represent in a SQL database? Columns. Excellent, right? They represent columns. So that's the relationship between SQL and NoSQL databases. So the term database remains the same in NoSQL. Table is called collection. A row is a document, and a column is a field. Okay. So from now on, once we move on from this slide, these are the terminologies that I'm going to be using when I talk about Mongo database. Okay. Any confusions, any questions related to terminology or concept? Do you guys, yes?
So for field, could that just be thought of as an object property?
Yes. That is exactly what it is. Right. And a field has a value, that would be your object value. Yeah. If you go back to this example, it's a JSON, right? This you call them properties. It's the same thing. Yeah. But when you talk about in MongoDB, they just call it field. Okay. Any other questions? Everybody clear on the terminologies? When I talk about collections, we'll be doing some queries and I'll be saying, hey, I'm going to create a collection. Basically, it means I'm creating a table. I'm going to insert a document. This means I'm inserting a row in my MongoDB. And my document has these fields, which actually means just columns in your SQL database. Okay, everybody clear? All right, let's move on and see this. Okay, now let's do a quick activity. I want you guys to kind of look up these questions. With that, the first question is, what are the benefits of a NoSQL database, right? Look into the first question says look into your MongoDB site and kind of find out what they are saying themselves. That, oh, why would I use MongoDB versus a SQL database? Then look at some other site Stack Overflow or Quora and see what is the advantages and disadvantages of using a NoSQL database, right? And the reason is that when you are working, not every company uses MongoDB or a NoSQL database, right? A lot of companies still use a relational database. So why are they using a relational database versus NoSQL database? Okay, I want you guys to kind of just spend like 5-10 minutes, look up these questions and understand the difference between the NoSQL and a SQL database and what are the benefits and basically what are the pros and cons of using a SQL database versus a NoSQL database. Okay, now we'll just quickly recap. We'll just discuss as a class, and then we'll move on to see how MongoDB is set up, create some collections, insert some documents, and then start using it. Yes, please work as a group, kind of discuss. It's a more discussion activity. You guys know the query? All right. So, what are the pros of using a NoSQL database such as MongoDB? Go ahead.
It's more scalable. It's like it gets more data.
More scalable.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Okay.
I guess the data doesn't have to follow like such a strict
Yeah. It doesn't have to follow a structure, like a strict structure such as your relational databases. So if the column is not there, if you try to insert something, it's actually going to give you an error. Versus we'll take a look at it that if the column or if the field doesn't exist, you will see that it will automatically create a new one. It's kind of good and bad, but we'll take a look at that. It is, yeah. I'm like, wow, okay. Yeah, if you write a wrong query, it actually inserts a column. Oh yeah, inserts a field in your data. What else? Anything else? Yes.
The word Mongo is coming from what humongous.
It's coming from what?
Humongous.
Okay.
That's why it's called Mongo, and that's what it could be the idea what it does. It just can handle a huge amount of data.
Right. It can handle a huge amount of data. Okay. Any? What about the cons of MongoDB? Some of the disadvantages.
RAM limitation.
What is it?
RAM limitation.
RAM limit. Can you expand on that? What does that mean? RAM limitation.
Just depending on, like, for Windows, you 32-bit, it's gonna want 2 gig reserved alone for MongoDB.
Okay. So maybe it takes up a lot of memory. Okay. Interesting. What else? Huh? Security. Yeah. Well, Sarah is going to read and let us know. But security has been always a concern with MongoDB, and that's one of the biggest issues that it has taken a little bit longer for everybody to kind of work with Mongo. It's good. I will tell you, if you go to if you start working for a like a startup company or a smaller company, MongoDB is free, right? It's open source. A lot of people use it, right? But it has been found out they do have some security flaws. They have kind of updated it. They have gotten better over years. Um, but there were some security flaws within Mongo database, and it was considered that you could actually get all the data somebody was actually looking for. Again, they have improved over the years, but with any new product that is always there, right? SQL databases have existed for like 20, 30 years now. Okay, they have um, gone through a time. They have a lot more unit test cases. They have been tested, they have been fixed, and everything over the years, right? MongoDB, maybe like 5, 6, 10 years, it has become more popular. So a lot more people are starting to use it now versus 10 years ago. Okay, so when a lot more people are using it, they find more holes in it, more security holes, and all that stuff kind of comes up. So it will take time. um, for MongoDB, it's maturing. I'm not saying it hasn't matured. Within 5 years, MongoDB has matured a lot. Again, and the reason is a lot more companies are starting to use MongoDB. Okay. Any other disadvantage of MongoDB or NoSQL? Yes, it's not.
It's not compatible at all with SQL.
It's not compatible with SQL. No. I mean, so it's a good point. The thing is, they both offer different things, right? They're entirely different. One is SQL with relationships, much more. I don't want to use the word organized, but more much more structured. And one is like totally it's providing different aspects of a business. Okay, they both have different use cases. That's a good point. I'll come back to that one in a bit. So um, what the point is that if you have a NoSQL database, basically you cannot use SQL inside it, right? They both offer different use cases, but I'll come back to that point in a bit. What other disadvantages you guys think there are, or you guys found out? Yes. Ah, yes, yes, right. So MongoDB is not like a solution for everything, right? There are times when you need a table, when you need different table, when you need a relationship between the data, right? But if you look at MongoDB or a NoSQL database, everything is in one big JSON. If you have a lot more complex data, a lot more complex relationship, it might actually be worse performing to actually get to you have to go through an object within an object within an object within an array within an object. Kind of gets complex if you have a complex data. Okay. A lot more, especially bigger companies, they're kind of hesitant because of this. I know some of you guys said scalable. MongoDB is scalable, but there's a point, especially a few years ago, where once you reach a certain point, once your data reaches a certain point, it actually started performing worse. All right. There is still a limitation. Again, as I said, and the only reason is because MongoDB is relatively new. It hasn't gone through the same process yet. It hasn't been tested. It hasn't been trialed as much as your SQL databases have. Okay, so give it more time. It's still there, but it does have it's scalable to a certain point. But if you look at like bigger companies like Walmart or Amazon, it's kind of, I mean, you will hear if you go to MongoDB site, you might see Walmart using it or Amazon or Google, right? Just be cautious. They're using it, but you need to see what they're using it for. It's not that Google has suddenly or Walmart has suddenly put all the data on MongoDB and everything is running on MongoDB. It's not the case. It's like maybe small projects that they're using for. For bigger, larger data set, it's still mainframe and SQL and all that stuff. Okay, it's going to take some time in migration, but still, they're using it, but not at the large scale. Okay. All right. But again, for smaller companies, for your startups, MongoDB is a good solution. It's free. Um, it's able to accommodate the data. It's able to scale. Again, the data set is not as big. Again, the data set I'm talking about is in GBs and millions of rows. It's still okay, right? Where it does not perform is, when you hit trillions rows and transaction and fast processing transaction. Again, there's only like few big companies that need that kind of data set. Smaller companies are still okay with it. Okay, so you will see a lot more companies kind of trending toward a NoSQL database. Now, Mongo is not the only NoSQL database. There's CouchDB. There are a few more that have kind of come up. So you will see, but the format, the concept, still translatable. Both are same. Okay. Any questions about the concept? MongoDB. Does everybody get an idea what it is, where it is being used? Yes.
Is Mongo used more often than Firebase?
Right. So Firebase and Mongo, I know the way we use Firebase is a little bit different, but I would say that Mongo is more oftenly used than Firebase. Firebase has a place, but Firebase is more popular with your chat applications because it's so fast and real time. With your financial applications, with your applications, your phone applications, especially Android, the notifications that come back and forth. Firebase is like the prominent database over there. You will see a lot of programmers using Firebase to send and receive notifications when they create apps. Uh, MongoDB doesn't qualify for that use case, so that's the difference. So it's a little bit more different applications. But the thing is, Firebase is kind of like a NoSQL database, so that's why you will see. But it's not usually used the way that we use, and that's why I kind of clarified when we were using Firebase. We're using it to store data, which is okay, but Firebase is more known for the real-time thing that it provides versus MongoDB. Okay, so you will most probably see companies using both, but Firebase would probably be using if they have an app. They'll be like, hey, we're using Firebase because we have an app and we want to send notifications. MongoDB would be actually being used to store the data. Firebase would be usually like an authentication or like notification versus actually storing the data. Okay. All right. Any other questions? We good? Okay. All right. So let's start with our MongoDB. We'll go to the MongoDB website. Go to MongoDB website. We'll follow through the documentation that they have. All right. You can go into the docs, and in your docs, we are working with the server. Okay. In recent times, MongoDB has, of course, they want to make money, so they have released two different versions now: a community version and an enterprise version. Okay, as the name suggests, you can guess what does the community do, what does the enterprise do. So we are using the community version of MongoDB now. Okay, it's the latest version is 4.2. Okay, if you install with my instructions that I copy pasted with I sent from over here, you should be using 4.2. Okay. Now, before I begin, I want to make sure everybody has this installation complete. Let's go over here. So I have personally done the Mac OS one. I don't think anybody installed MongoDB before this class. Did anybody had installed it like 3 months ago or something? No. So because they have changed, that's what I'm trying to say. I had this installed, of course, for previous cohorts. they have kind of changed locations, they have changed their installation process, so I had to kind of go back and redo everything. So when you have installed on your Mac OS, the way to, I'll quickly cover the Mac OS first because I think there are less number of people using this. Um, if you have the correct installation done, this is how it should work as. So I have, let's go back over here. They're saying once you have done all the installation, if you want to run this, you do brew services, start, and then this. Okay, so I'm going to go here, copy paste this, and this is going to start my Mongo database service. Okay, remember in MySQL, you have to have a service that is running behind the scenes. The same with Mongo. Okay, you have to have a service running behind the scenes, and to verify this, if you do brew services or brew list services, is going to list all the services that are running, and MongoDB should show up over here. Oh, brew services list. Okay, brew services list. And since I started this, so this shows me saying MongoDB started. If I want to stop it, I would say Mongo brew services stop. Okay, this is going to go ahead and stop my MongoDB service. And then when I go back to my list, it's going to say it's stopped. Okay, so if you have this as stopped, you will not be able to run Mongo. Okay, so let's make sure that we are starting our MongoDB. Okay, let's make sure this is running. Okay, so this is for everybody who's on Mac OS. All right, anybody who has a Mac, any issues, any problems? You guys have everything installed. You can see it started. It's running. Okay. All right. Now for Windows, I would ask if well, I see Ethan has a Windows machine. Maybe he can help me. I haven't personally followed the Windows one, but again, I went through it. Looks like the similar documentation. Like there shouldn't be anything that is different. If you have followed this, you should be able to start your Mongo. And let's see. We'll come back to how to test this, but you should be able to start Mongo once you have this installed. Anybody with Windows machine having issues? Oh, nobody has any issue? Okay, so here's a quick test. This is for both, it doesn't matter what OS it is. If I, let me clear this. If I just type in Mongo, it should come up something like this, and you should have like a prompt, and this is where we are going to type in all the commands. So if everything is successful, if you have your community edition running, as soon as you type in Mongo, okay, just Mongo, all right, it should bring you through this prompt like a command prompt thing. Okay, and for example, if you type in a shell command, I will go through it. You know what, I'll just wait for this one first. So this is, if this comes up with a prompt that where you can type in some of the commands, this means it is actually running. If I shut down my Mongo, it's not going to come to this. It's going to give me an error saying the Mongo daemon or something is not running. It's not listening for connection or some kind of error, but I will never get to this prompt. So once you type in, is everybody able to come to this prompt? Anyone who is not on this point? Okay, what's your issue? Did you install it? Okay. So what's that? Are you getting error? Mongo is not defined. Okay, so here's the thing. You see over here, they're saying you have to run it like specifying the whole path. Did you try it like this? Again, look at the documentation for your. The one that I'm showing you is for the Mac OS. For Mac OS, kind of nice. You just put in Mongo, it shows up. For Windows, it might not be added to the path, so that's why they're saying it should be this thing. Josh, what about you? Right, but how are you running? Are you running like this? So is your Mongo actually installed is on that path or not? Right. That's what I'm saying. It's they have changed their thing. You have to access it like this. The other way for Windows is you will have to add this on the path, but I won't go through it, but you can Google and find out. That's what I'm saying. If you want to start your Mongo database on Windows machine, this is what they're saying. So we'll just follow this thing. Did that work, Goose? It should. Did you get to this part? It should come to a prompt saying this. Saying this thing at the bottom. You see like a yeah. Are you there? Okay. So this is called a Mongo shell. All right. Before I proceed, anybody else? Okay. All right. So this is called a Mongo shell. All right. This is where we are going to create our collections, create our database, create our collections, insert documents, remove documents, update documents. Basically, the CRUD operations. Okay. So Mongo is also a database, so it has the four CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. So I'm going to go over all four of them in today's class. Now, towards the end of the class, I'm going to talk about the Robo 3T. That's the unofficial UI, just like your MySQL Workbench. Okay, remember MySQL is a product its own. MySQL Workbench is the GUI or the UI for that MySQL. Okay, similarly, MongoDB is a product, and this is all the documentation related to MongoDB. There's a UI, unofficial UI. It's Robo 3D. That's probably the better ones out there. Okay. Once I go through MongoDB shell and everything, I'm 100% sure the question is going to come when I show you Robo 3D. Why didn't we start with that? It's so much easier. I get it. The thing is, this is how you write queries in MongoDB. When we write a Node application, this is how you would be writing the queries in your Node application. So you need to know how to write queries in Mongo. Okay, the UI does a lot of work for you, but you're not going to use the UI when you're writing a Node application. So we need to know how to write queries in Mongo database. Okay, so the first thing is, let's go to the documentation, go to the Mongo shell. Once this command prompt, this thing shows up, this is called the Mongo shell, right? Now Mongo is ready. You can create, delete, and do everything. Okay. Once you go to your Mongo shell documentation, let's go to the quick reference, and we'll try a few things out, and then we'll come to the CRUD operations. So let's try this thing. Show DBS. If you type in show DBS or database, I think. Let me go back here and see. Or databases, both of them will show the same information. Okay. If you type this in, it is going to show all the databases that exist on your local host. Okay. You might see the same thing, you might not see the same thing, I'm not sure. But these are some system generated databases. We are not going to mess with those. We are going to create our own database. But the command is, again, show DBS, and this will give you the list of databases that exist. Yes. Okay, so I'm going on the Mongo shell. Remember when we start Mongo, when I type in Mongo, this shows up. Now, if you open it up in your command prompt, that's where you're going to do it. If you did it in your Git bash, that's what. The only thing is, this is important, this thing. Do you see, where do you see this caret? Okay, so you just needed one. You have Mongo open in two different, you can close one. It should just be on one window. What does it say?
I mean, I did the show DBS and I got the admin. I got all of
Okay.
that.
So
I think
what's
it's okay.
so what, is it just empty?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just saying. if
Okay.
somebody else
So
knows.
for looks like for Windows, it's just like an empty.
It's like
empty
a
screen.
regular command line.
On the command prompt, you don't have a caret, but on GitHub.
Okay. So that's yeah, I get it. So on Git Bash, you won't see a caret apparently, and on your command prompt, you will see this caret. Now the important thing is when I type in uh, any Mongo shell command, it should give you something. So if you have a caret, if don't doesn't matter as long as this shell command is working. Is this working for everybody? Anybody who's not able to run this? Okay, that's all. Okay. Now we'll go through the operations. I'll show you some of the how do you write queries and everything in your Mongo database. Okay. So remember the first thing we need to create a database. So for creating the database, you're going to use a command called use and then a database name. Okay. Now, please take notes how and what is the naming convention that I'm using. This is a naming convention that Mongo uses. It's a little bit different than your SQL databases. They are big on camel casing. Okay. And I'll be creating collections. I'll be creating database with a naming convention that Mongo actually uses. Again, it's not required. You can use any name you want, but I'm going to be following the naming convention that MongoDB uses. Okay. So there's no like a create command when you're creating a database. All you have to do is say use and then a database name. Okay. So I'm going to create a database called school, and I'm going to call it like this: school, and then two uppercases DB. All right. That's how the naming convention is in MongoDB. So that's the same thing that I'm using. And you will notice it's a singular. It's a school, not schools. Your collection are going to be plural. And we'll take a look at that once we get there. Okay. So you will say use a database name, and then if you do, I don't know if it shows up yet or not. Okay. When you do use and a database name, you will say it says switch to database school DB. But when you do a show DBS, you won't see that database yet. Okay. So when you do the use and a database name, MongoDB kind of makes a placeholder at a very high level, which says, okay, I'm going to have a placeholder for a database that you are going to be creating. It doesn't actually create it yet. It creates a database when you add a collection to that database. Okay. A database with no collection is not going to exist. It's not going to physically exist. When you do a use, MongoDB has taken a node. It's saying, okay, some collections are coming that are going to be part of this database. So I'm going to keep a track of it. Okay. But your database won't exist until you add a collection. Okay. Now, the other part to that is a collection will not exist until you have some data in that collection. So you see, that's how MongoDB kind of it may be they're trying to be more efficient and everything. Maybe that's the use case, but I'm not sure. But that's how it works. So unless you have a collection, a database is not going to exist. Unless you have a field, unless you have a document in a collection is not going to exist. So we are going to go ahead and just create a collection and insert some data inside it. Okay, so database, collection, and then document. A document is going to have fields. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our documentation. You will go into reference. All right, open a new window so that we kind of use this one. So go into reference. Let me open this in a window. Okay. We will go into Mongo shell commands. All right, and then we are going to look at collection methods. Okay. So these are all the methods that MongoDB provides. Of course, I'm not going to cover all of them. I'm going to cover the CRUD operations ones. I'm going to cover the create, read, update, and delete ones. but these are all the ones that are over here. Okay, so let's start with our create operation first. Okay, create means inserting some data inside our MongoDB collection. So these you have three, since everybody is using the latest version. In the previous ones, there was only one method called insert, but now they have like three methods: insert, insert one, insert many. I'm going to cover insert only. Okay, and the rest of the two you can figure out what it does. It's pretty convenient. Okay, so what does insert do? Insert is going to insert a document in your collection. Okay, what does insert method take as an argument? It can be a document or an array of documents. Okay, when I say document, what does that mean? What is a document referring to? A JSON. Simple. A JSON object. So your insert method can switch between an array of JSON objects or just a single object. Okay, so if you pass a single object, it's going to insert one document. If you pass an array of JSON objects, it's going to insert that array, multiple documents. Okay, now similarly, I'm not going to cover these two, but this should tell you what's going on. If you use the insert one, you can only pass a single document. If you're using insert many, then you're going to pass an array of documents. If you use this method, it takes care of both of the things. Okay? Good. All right. Now, what do you just have to do? db.collection.insert. That's the method. Now, the collection over here means that you're going to replace it with the name of the collection that you want. Okay, so we are going to go to our database. We have switched to our database, so we're going to say db dot, I'm going to create a collection called teachers. Okay, and then I'm going to use the method insert, and that's it. Well, that's not it, but this is a method that we're going to use. Okay, now I'll show you insert with both. I'll show you inserting a single object, and then I'll show you inserting an array. They both are kind of similar. So first we need to insert an object. So it's going to be an object, and then this object is just like your JSON object. It can have strings, numbers, array of objects, anything that you want. Okay, so let's go ahead and insert some data over here. So I'm going to have a let's create a gender property. Let's say, okay. Then I'm going to have a name property. I'm going to say name. Okay, and I'm going to give a name of the teacher. Oh, I'm going to change this a bit. So instead, so first is a string. Okay, as said, you can have a string, a number. You can have another object within that also. So for example, your name could be first divided into two things. You'll have first name. Okay, I'll say Albus. And then you can also have a second property within this object. We'll say last name. And you will note that I'm using the camel casing. That's how MongoDB is. Again, it doesn't matter. The only thing is it is case sensitive. So name all lowercase and name all uppercase, those are going to be two different fields in your Mongo. Just make sure. Okay, it is case sensitive. If you type in a field called name and then you insert a field called uppercase name, they both are considered different in Mongo. Okay, it's case sensitive. All right, so last name Dumbledore. So that's my one other property. Let's go ahead and add a age. Let's put a number. Okay, and then you can also have a array of strings. So let's say affiliations. Let's spell that right. Affiliations, and this could be an array. Let's say Berlin is also part of order of Next. Okay. And what is a okay, some data. So you see, you can have a string, number, array, another object, and all of these are acceptable. Okay, so if you go ahead and enter it, if I hope I have typed everything correctly, it should go ahead and insert without an error. Let's try that. Okay, so it worked. All right, you should see this is called a success message. It is saying it inserted one document in my database called SchoolDB. Within that database, there's a collection called teachers, and that's where it went ahead and inserted. Okay, if I had a different collection, it would be db dot that collection name and then the same command. Okay, any questions before related to this? Okay, simple. It's a function called insert, and you're passing it an object. Okay, now let's suppose I want to pass an I want to insert multiple teachers within this teachers dot insert. Okay, remember it can take a single object and an array of object also. Okay, so this time I'm just going to copy some data that I already have. Let's see if this works. Okay. I'm missing a. Ugh, I hate that. Okay, I'm kind of stuck here now. Yeah, but is it going to stop the whole thing? I don't want the. Okay, that's fine. Let's make sure that database is there. So show DBs. Okay, my school database is still there. All right, so I am going to change. So what I have over here is the easy part is you can write those queries in a text file. I'm doing it in Visual Studio. So you can write it over here, kind of see what it is and just copy paste it over there. That might be a little bit easier instead of typing the whole thing. So for example, I have this thing and this should actually work. We'll go through it. Okay, so same collection, teachers, insert this time instead of a single object, I'm passing it an array. Okay, an array which has two objects, this thing, all right, and the same properties that I had for the first one. All right, when I enter this, inserted two rows, so that's good, and that should be it. Okay, so I use the same method insert to insert a single object and an array of objects. Okay, you can use one of this if you're just inserting one. You can use insert one or insert many, doesn't matter. Okay, any questions before I move on to the next CRUD operation? Everybody good? No questions? All right, now I've inserted the data. I want to read the data, right? See, we have completed the C part. So we have created data. Now we are going to go ahead and read the data. Okay. In MongoDB terms, it's called find. So if you go back to your documentation, look up the find method. They have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 find methods. Okay, I'll just cover the first one, and from the name you can guess what the other one does. Okay, let's go to the first one, the find method. So find method takes in 2 arguments, but the thing to note over here is both of them are optional. I'll cover both of them what they do, but the first thing is that both are optional. You don't actually have to pass an argument. Okay, let's start with that one first. So it's going to be db dot your collection name, which is called teachers dot find method without any argument. Let's try this first. So what does this do? It goes in your database in your collection that you created and gets all the rows. This is basically saying select star from teachers. In your SQL database, your query would be select star from teachers. Okay, over here it's called db.teachers.find. Now it kind of looks crazy, it's hard to read, but MongoDB kind of provides a function called pretty. So if you type in dot pretty parentheses, a function kind of makes it look nicer. So now you can see, oh, it's actually a JSON object. Okay, so the command I did was db.teachers.find.pretty brings all the documents that are in my teachers collection. Okay, this is what I inserted. All right, my first one, second, and my third. All three documents are over here. Okay, anything different that you guys see? Gives it an ID. Remember in Firebase also you were getting an ID. So MongoDB automatically gives you it's called like a unique ID, but to be correct term, it's a UUID. It's called a universal unique identifier. It's a long 32 character long ID. It's kind of hard to guess and kind of hard to crack, so that's why they use this one. But underscore ID is a reserved field in your document, and it is automatically generated, and you don't have to worry about it. Every time you insert a document, you're going to get a unique ID for it. Okay. All right. Any questions about the find method? Okay. Now, as I said, find method actually takes in two different arguments. All right. The first is called query. This is what you would say the where clause in your SQL statement. All right. Right now, it just returns me everything from my database, but I don't want that. Maybe I just want to find teachers with a gender male. Right. That would be your select star from teachers where gender is equal to male or female. Right. In this case, it would be the first parameter of your find function. Okay, if you go back over here, query, what is the data type? It's document. This means it is an object, right? Both of these are objects. So we will do an object, and then this is what you want to. Let's say I want to find, get me all the documents where gender is, let's say, female. Okay, so it brings me just one document back. Okay, you can run the same query, change it to different gender. Now you should get back two documents. Okay, so the first parameter in your find is equivalent to the where clause of your SQL statement. Okay, now what all you can search. Right now we are searching by gender, which is kind of easy. What if I want to search by age? Age is also easy. You would say age. Let's say if I want to search by this and a second parameter, age as well. Age is 115. Okay, now I should get back just one document. Okay, basically this is saying in your SQL terms, it is saying select star from teachers where gender is male and age is 115. Okay, so you can add multiple properties, multiple fields over here, and it's going to kind of narrow down your scope for what you're trying to find. Okay, you can also parse through this one. Let's suppose I'm trying to find teachers whose first name is Albus, right? But you see it's kind of embedded object. Now my query is going to be if you come back over here, you would say their name is equal to this thing, Now name is a object, so I cannot directly put in it, so I will have to say where name first name is equal to Albus. Oh, that didn't work. What am I? Okay, so I'm trying to find a teacher with the first name Albus, but the thing over here is it's kind of embedded inside this object over here. Okay, it's within my object called name. All right, now when you are querying an embedded object, the problem over here is that you have to specify every single field that exists within this object, otherwise it's not going to work. So what it is currently doing is it's looking for a within your name, it's only searching for a document which has a single property called first name. Okay, now if you go back over here, you will see all my object name has two properties: first name, last name, first name, last name. Okay, so the problem over here is it's not going to work unless you specify, you complete the equation and mentioning last name as well. I know it's kind of lame, but that's how it is. Well, I'll show you another way to kind of fix this. Dumbo Joe. Okay, now you will get it back. Right? Again, what is the reason? It literally just looks for a name field with only a name document, a name object, which only has one property called first name. Okay? But all of these documents have a property called name, but they have two properties within it, first name, last name. So you have to mention both of these over here if you want to find them. Okay? Now, the other way to do this, the same thing is you can say db dot teachers and use our dot notation. So you can say dot find. Okay, let's say dot pretty, complete this, and I am trying to find a name property, so it's going to be name dot first name, okay, is equal to Albus. Yeah, let's try it. Okay, so in this case, you see I'm using the dot notation, so you have two different ways to do it. Either you can do it as an object, okay, or you can use a dot notation and get to that one. Okay, now here's the difference. You see I'm using double quotes. Be consistent. In the first case, in the top one, in this query over here, right, you can skip the double quotes in your property names. Like this will work, right? Of course I need double quotes over here because this is a string, but when you're putting your property names, your field names, you can skip these double quotes and this will still work. Okay, but where it won't work is when you're using this dot notation. If you remove the quotations around the dot notation, it's not going to work. Okay, just be careful with that. I would recommend just be consistent. If you're using double quotes, just use double quotes everywhere. It's going to give you an error, so you need double quotes in this case. Okay, again, property names, double quotes is not required, but again, just to be consistent, make sure you have double quotes, okay, so that you don't run into any problem. But I think it's my duty to let you guys know that you don't need double quotes in your property names, but you do need your double quotes when you are referring to an object using the dot notation like this one. Okay, same thing if you want to find through search through this array. It's going to be kind of similar syntax. You would just put your name of the array over here, so you would say affiliations. Okay, let's say order of Marlene. Okay, it brings me, it looks through this array, all right, and finds if this exists, wherever this record have this, it brings that. Okay, let's see if we search by Phoenix, because I have two teachers. which belong to order of Phoenix. Actually, all three of them. So it brings all three of them. Okay, so this is how you would search within your array. All right. One last thing, and then we'll take a break. You can search by age as well. So let me first do a simple one where the age is, let's say 45. Okay. Now remember the operators. So they have operators in MongoDB also. So if you want to search for an age which is greater than 45, this is how you would do. You would say 45, and then so you would put this in a object. Okay. Oops. And for greater than, it's going to be $GT, greater than. Let's say greater than 100. Okay. It should bring me one row. Okay, if I change this and say LT less than 100, then it's going to bring me two rows because the age is 45 and 85. Okay, now just be careful. Again, the syntax is kind of similar. You have age. Let me see if I can clear this. So, okay, age. But again, if you're using the operators, they are inside an object. All right, they're inside an object over here. Okay, that's the only catch. Now all of this is in the documentation over here. You can find by range. They have different operations over here. But those are the main ones, and you can take a look at it. This is the one that I was using, the greater than one. Okay, they have less than. I think less than equal to would be LTE, GTE. Try those. They have in operator. We already covered this one. This is how you do the ranges. Okay, if you specify both of them, it comes back with a range. Okay, go back over here. All right, any questions on create or read operations? So basically they are insert and find. Okay, so let's take a break. We'll start at 8:10, and I'll give you an exercise with those two operations, and then we'll jump on to the update and delete.
Yeah, I just sent him a message. He's just offline.
Is it what?
He's offline and stuff.
Oh yeah, I thought that. I told Brent, so he'll kind of try to follow. I hope he's okay. Oh, scary.
So you're waiting for Yeah, well, and it's hard to go back and like see where you made a mistake. It doesn't really tell you anything. So it's kind of hard to see that. You see this oh, I did right now. Like the yellow and the orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. Today, I
Yeah, because there's like, well, I didn't know people were doing that, but I could tell them because there's like a big group of like 5 to 6 people that are like still
try running this one again.
Oh, nice. Foo Fighters.
Right.
On Saturday, can I skip out like an hour early?
Okay.
This is my daughter's birthday.
Oh,
Can I
yeah.
get home before the party starts and get
Okay.
the last little bit done? I mean,
Yeah.
as long as I don't get penalized.
You don't what?
Like if I don't get penalized against like
No,
the
no.
attendance. Okay, I didn't think an hour would really hurt too bad.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I feel like I've established a relationship with everybody, so I know where they are.
Okay.
Should be okay.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have no idea.
Right, yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, because so what actually is that there was something wrong with because we didn't get a message that was like
All right. So you guys will be working on activity number 2. All right. Before you start on activity number 2, I just want to show you the second argument for the find method. Remember I said both of these are optional. The first one we looked at is the query, which is basically a where clause. The second one is called projection, which is the name of the fields that you want to see in your result set. Okay. Remember the SQL queries are select star from table name and all that stuff, but at times we don't use the star, right? We mention the column names. So projection is exactly the same thing, and you can mention your field names over here. So for example, if I write this query saying db.teachers.find, okay, so the first argument is the query parameters, the query thing that we have been using, for example, age and everything. We'll keep it empty so that it returns everything. The second is all the columns that I want to see. Let's suppose I just want to see the age field, sorry, not columns. Okay, so you're going to say age and then 1. The values that are possible in your projection argument is going to be 1 or 0. Okay, 1 means just show me the age field. So if I run this, let me add pretty. So you see it gets me all the documents, but only with the age field over here. Okay. Another thing to note over here is by default ID will be shown with every single one. Okay. Let's suppose I just want age and gender. So I'm going to say gender and then 1. Okay, this time my result set came back. It found all the documents, all right, but only shows me age and gender fields. Okay, I'm not using double quotes, but it's the same rule. Stick to consistency. I should have put double quotes over there, but it doesn't matter. Okay, now the catch over here is that you cannot use 1 and 0 in the same statement, that you cannot have 1 and a 0. Okay, this is not possible. If you don't want a field to show up, you just remove that field. It cannot have ones and zeros, going to give you an error. Okay, so either it should be consistent as 0 and 0 or 1 and 1. So when I say 0 and 0, which is false, what does this mean? Show me all the fields except age and gender. So when you run this query, it's going to show you all the documents with all the field except age and gender. Okay, so 1 means true, show me just that. 0 means escape these, and you cannot mix and match. You cannot have one field show and the other field not show up. If you don't want the field to show up, just remove it from over there. Okay, now the other catch is you can only put ID, you can have a mix and match combination with just the ID column. Okay, over here I'm saying show me only age column and then don't show me the ID column. And the reason is if you don't have the ID column mentioned, remember by default it's going to add the ID column. Okay, but if you don't want the ID column, just add that and say ID is 0, then it's just going to show you age. So in this case, you can have gender, show me age and gender, and then don't show me an ID. Okay, ID is the only field that you can have mix and match. So it just skips the ID. All right, that's the second argument of this thing. You can have the same conditions that we had over here from the previous one. You can say where, let's say, how do we have it? Where gender is male, okay, from the same previous ones. All right, shows me there. The second one is the number of fields, the field that you only want to see, right? This takes place when you write a query in SQL. You say select star something. Instead of star, you would say select first column, second column, third column, whatever the column names are. That's what the second parameter is. Okay, so your find has two arguments. The first is the query, the second is called projection, which is just your field name that you want to see. But remember, both of them are optional, or you can skip them. It's going to give you everything and every document and every field in that document. Okay. All right. Now go ahead. Start on activity number 2. Similar, you just need to create a different correction, and then I'll show you update and delete.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah,
But yeah, the idea is
but
that
do you have it like,
yes,
have it?
like with everything we learned our way first.
So show me the packet, show me the same packet. With the,
Yeah,
when is your control panel? No, it's not the same packet that the website that the right? They had like just if you're gonna do it in one, like right now, oh yeah, so this should be you don't want to do it. What's the other one that you're already
I just have
so that's what I'm saying. Is like, see, so what I was saying is like, so you just need a different. So what you're saying is start this one and other one that you're saying. Yeah. This is the okay. Yeah, it's the when you document. Right. So if you want to insert multiple documents, it has to be inside an array. Right? An array of documents. You cannot insert it. So you have to do an array.
Like that's very soft. Like inconsistent. They don't have The new thing.
So where do they start? Yeah, but where's no, it's yes. Oh yeah, they had something. No, is very so this is so you said well, but you still have
Right, so I opened another one.
okay, I know that one to our ancestral home. Okay, so where's your recipes? One is there, and that's on most yeah, so here now you're missing so all you can have like this and drops of hope. Or we try to drop very strong. Very strong.
Yeah, anything you can see that empty Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at the other two operators, update and delete. Huh? Okay. So the first two are create and read. The next two are update and delete. Okay. For update, let's look at the documentation. Similar to insert, if you go down, where's my update? Update. All right. It has three methods: update, update one, update many. Okay. I'll cover the update one, but the other two are kind of similar. Okay. Same query and what you're trying to update, and I'll write some queries so that you guys can see how update works. All right, so let's get back to our database over here. Let me do a db.characters, db.teachers.find.pretty, so that we can see all of our objects. Okay, these are my objects. Let's suppose I'll go ahead and update the age where the first name, where the name is Albus. Okay, so that's what I want to do in my document. I want to update a document with a new age where the name is Albus. Okay, so the query is going to be db.collectionNameTeachers. Okay, dot, we'll use the update method. Okay, now what am I? The first parameter is similar to the where clause of your SQL statement, right? When you are trying to update, you say update table name set something, where this is it. Okay, so in this one I'm saying where the first name is Albus. Okay, I'm going to use the dot notation, so that's why I need the mandatory code. So I'm saying where name dot first name, okay, is Albus. Okay, find this row and then go ahead and update it. Okay, so my argument is going to be my second argument. Okay, make sure you understand the first argument is the where clause, basically when you're talking about SQL, MySQL. So I'm saying update, find a row where the first name is Albus. Okay, now go ahead and update it. Update it with what? the keyword is called set, $set. Okay, just like $GT, which is greater than, or $LT, which is less than. The keyword is set. Okay, $set. And what am I trying to set? Um, my object. I'm trying to set age. Now I'm trying to make it 120. Okay, like right. Currently, the date for my record where the first name is Albus is 115. So I'm trying to update the date. Okay, so how does this read? Find, update the document where the first name is Albus. And what are you updating? Age. What is the new value? 120. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and run this update query. It says match 1, modified 1. That's good. So let's run our find query to make sure that this was updated. If I go back to my document, the date has been updated to 120. Okay, let me go back to the query. This is the query. Where did it go? This is the query that we ran. Okay, now let's say let me go back to my, let's say I want to update the age for, let's say now I'm selecting a different field. I'm going to select the field gender. Okay, and I'm going to say where the gender is male. Was it uppercase or lowercase? I think it was uppercase. Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to say update all the rows where the gender is, let's see, 150, where the gender is male. Okay, now from my document set, how many documents should it update? 2, because I have 2 male characters, Albus Dumbledore and Severus Snape, and 1 female, Professor McGonagall. Okay, so this should go ahead and update 2 documents. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, modified 1. It only updated 1. Let's make sure. Go back to our find. You will see it updated. It didn't update this one, even though the gender was male. It did update this one to 150. The gender was male. Okay, let me go back here. Let me go back to our query. Okay, so thing to be careful over here. If you're using the update method, the way I'm using it, it is always going to update the first document it finds. It's not going to update more than 1. The first document it finds which qualifies is going to update it, and that's it. If you want to use the update method, update function, okay, and you want to make sure all the rows are updated which qualify, you have to add a third parameter to this one, comma, this thing, and it's called multi-line. Let's see. No, it's just called multi. So multi-column, and then you have to say true. Okay. Again, this option is for if you're using the update method. So now I am saying, hey, update all my documents where the gender is male, set the age to 1, let's say 160, so that you can see the both of those are updated. Multi-true means more than 1. If you find documents qualifying to this condition which are more than 1, please go ahead and update all of them. All right. So let's go ahead and run this. Now you will see modified says 2. Right, 2 of these documents are updated. Why? Because they both qualify as this query over here. Okay, so if I go back and do a pretty, you will see that the age of both of these are updated. Okay, let me go back to my query. So again, this is if you're using make it a bit bigger. So if you're using the update method. Now in the version that we are on MongoDB, they have included, it's kind of a little bit tricky. People forget this, so they have included a function called update many for the exact same reason. Okay, so you can run this query without this parameter, but the only thing you have to do is make sure you're not using update method, you're using update many. Okay, so that's the 2 options. The first method is still there because it's kind of coming from the previous versions of MongoDB, and people are using it, so they don't want to remove it just yet. But they have included these new methods. So this will ensure that more than 1 documents are updated. So let's go back and change this to 115. Okay, so now it's going to go ahead and modify 2. Okay, you run your pretty query, you will see both of these are updated. Go back to our query. Okay, so that's the difference between update and update many. If you're using update, make sure you include the third parameter, which is going to be multi, and set it to true. If you set it to false, it's only going to update 1. Or you use the methods which are in the newer version, which we're already using, update many or update 1. Okay, go back here. All right, any questions? Everybody understand the update? You can update more than one. You can set age 60, change the name, separated by comma. Since this is an object, right? This is just an object, so it's going to update. You can add more set over here. Okay. Any questions? Now here's the interesting part. So let's suppose I do want to. What was the last query that I ran? Let's get back to our. Let's say let's remove our multi. Oops. Okay, I'm going to go back to our first name. I'm going to do it by name, and it's going to return me 1, so I don't have to worry about it. Name dot first name. Okay, where the first name is Severus. Oops. Okay, set age to 45. So this will set it back to my original data set. Just to show you guys, we can do update one method. So this one. Okay, so it's going to just update 1 row, and it has been updated. Okay, so my data set is back to my original one. Okay, let's go back to the original code. Now here's the interesting part now. I said all of these fields are case sensitive. So let's suppose by mistake I did age like this, right? Now you would think, oh, I mean, it should return you an error saying there's no field that exists. Since it is case sensitive, there's literally no field called uppercase A and then GE. So it should give you an error, but that's not what it happens. When you do an update, if the field does not exist, it will go ahead and add that field to your data set. Do you see that? So I was trying to update this one, but instead I mistyped and I put uppercase A instead of telling me, oh, there's no field called age. Maybe you made a mistake or something. It doesn't do it. MongoDB is going to insert a new field inside your database. So please be careful if you are trying to run your update query and you put in a case sensitive. You miss a case, or you misspell it or something, is going to go ahead and insert it. Okay, it's going to add a new field to your data set. Most probably that's not what you want, but that's how it is. Okay, that's the downside, but the positive side is if the field does not exist in your data set, you can just simply add a field. Maybe there's a field that only belongs to this data set and it's not relevant to all of them. You can just add it to this one, and then you have a JSON object with only this field belonging to this object. That's why they have the flexibility. Again, if you remember, the JSON objects are kind of similar thing. Remember the constructors and everything. You can add more fields to your JSON object, and that's why they're doing this. Okay, so let me go back to our query. So this is what I did. Again, the easy part, if you want to remove it, they have a method called unset. So we're using set. If you just do unset and pass in the field name that you want to remove, this should go ahead and remove it. Oh, apparently it did not. Modifiers on field, but we found type string instead. First name. Let's see. Age.
Not like this.
Oh, this thing? I don't think that's what it is, but let's try this. I haven't actually tried the unset. No, it's not. I think it's there. It's saying that you need to pass in the exact value and everything. So I have to say age is 45, what I inserted, and then it goes ahead and removes it. That's what it is. And that you have to give me the exact, even the value also. And now if you go back and run your find, you will see that from our data set that age field is removed. Okay, let me go back to our query. So if you insert it, just use the unset one, and that's going to remove that field that you don't require anymore. Okay, any questions? Update is a little bit tricky, but you know, dollar set, and then what you're trying to update the field. Just be careful, no typos, no nothing, unless you are intentionally trying to add a new field to your data set. Okay. Now let's look at the delete one. That's probably the most easy for all of them. It's called remove. So let's go back here. This one, remove. Okay. A little bit careful with remove also, and I'll show you why. It's called remove. It's actually dangerous to complete this statement because if I do this and if I enter and hit enter by mistake, it's going to remove every single document from my teacher's collection. Yeah, so I'll intentionally leave out the last one. So if I hit enter, it's going to give me a syntax error and don't remove it because I don't want to remove everything yet. So let's suppose I want to remove name dot first name is Severus. So I'm going to remove this record from this document from my teacher's collection. Okay, and then that should be it. And then you can go ahead and complete this, and then hit enter. So one document has been removed. So if you go back and say db.find.pretty, you will see now I have two of these. Another good query is the count one. You can have, if you do a dot count, it shows you how many documents are in the database. Initially I had 3, now there are 2. The dangerous one is teachers dot remove without anything, empty parameter, and this is going to remove everything from my teachers collection. Okay, now if I do a count, you will see I get 0 because there's no more document remaining in my collection. Okay, now if you want to remove the whole collection, the function is dangerous. It's called drop. Okay, if you do this, it removes the whole collection, just like removing a table. So now if I do show collections, there's no collections anymore. Okay, if you want to delete your database, it's db.drop database. All right, and it has dropped the school database. Okay, so now I cannot go back and answer any of your questions because I have deleted everything from my database now. Okay, so remove. Remove is removing documents. Okay, remember the remove function is for removing documents for your collection. If you want to remove a collection, you use the function called drop. If you want to delete the database, you use the function called drop database. Okay, the difference between drop database and drop is, for drop you need to mention the collection name, the one that you're trying to delete. So I said db.teachers.drop, and then if you want to drop your database, you simply say db.drop database. And how does it know what database to delete? Because remember initially we were saying use school DB, that's still in memory, so that's where we are. And unless you switch it to a different database, that's the one that's going to go ahead and delete it. Okay, since we are already in this database, that's the one MongoDB is going to go ahead and delete it. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Is there anything you can, any parameters you can enter to drop?
No, I don't think it's just empty. It's I don't see any parameters that they were saying. Yeah, it's just empty. Yeah, it doesn't look well. There are something, but basically it's empty. It's more like a configuration type, but the main one are just empty, no arguments. Even for what? No, remove. Remember, remove is for our documents. So you can specify the where clause. That's what I had, right? If you go back to my query, I said remove only the document where the first name is server, so it removed the one. So remove has parameters. Or if you pass in without anything, like this, then it's going to remove all the documents. Okay. Any other questions?
So if it removes all the documents, will the database still be there, but it's just empty?
Let's see. Yeah, database will still be there. Yeah, because you had something and you're kind of going backtracking, so it's still there. Yeah, you'll have to manually remove it. Any other questions? Okay, so no question. Let's do exercise number 4, and then I will show you the last part, the how to use Robo 3T, and that should be all. So exercise number 4 is using update and delete. So let's say you are going to use the same database that you created in the previous activity, and just run the update and the delete commands to make sure you kind of get a hang of it. And look at the documentation for update. Where's update? Okay. Should have a so they have an example over here. Don't worry about the ink and everything. Just first make sure you understand the set. Basically, you are saying for this ID, go ahead and update these fields. So you'll be kind of using something similar. There's no multi-true, so it's only going to update one, or go ahead and use update many. Again, this should only update one because ID is unique and they're passing in an ID of one. Oh, this is interesting. The ink operator increments the stock field, so it's like a counter. That's nice.
hopefully into this program that you can apply and really take, not just like really get to have a school, and if you go to this 2 month program, and it was all sequels.
Yeah, we did. We shared our demo.
Oh, that's oh yeah.
Yeah, so my coworker was there, so it was basically also the whole data, added data to the list there too. But yeah, stop. So I mean, that's the difference. Was they brought me under any kind of design. It was awful. Take what we learned here.
Courses they need to complete and get a certificate, and then after that, so they can start using
AWS.
yeah. No, I was just right. I don't think I would, but it was a good learning opportunity. I got some data experience, so that's fine. Yeah, and I get it. Yeah, I remember for the back in the house, yeah, so combination of the new and sure. We have a good business, like so yeah. Right? Yeah. 600, like come up with the essay, right? You know they have their the statement. That's also popular, but that's why yeah. You know what? Right. Come to us with the exhibit. Okay. Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta go
that's
there.
very active. Oh yeah. Wow. Except that it's on rails. Yeah.
Well, my daughter said, sure, it's literally all. It would not. Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Well, I is the race large hobbies. Yeah, like ratings got one search and ratings is an object, and within the ratings object there is a property called one. So ratings dot one. So ratings is an array. And so within the ratings there is an object called one. So they're saying, oh, okay. It is saying the object one. So maybe a rating slot, new object. Yeah, new index or the new. Start with the index. I think it will. So that's why we have two objects in order to find the dot index. Yeah, it's a trial and error. Try it. I think it's interesting.
What happened? Driver? Oh, driver is next class. Oh, do you mean the Robo 3D? It's yes, but you, I'll talk about it. Yeah.
So this is what we use on the website. Yes, you have to set
All right. Let me show you one last thing for tonight. Now, before I show you guys the UI for MongoDB, the response is definitely like, well, why didn't I show it before? And the reason is, I mean, you guys would say that because it's hard to type in shell, right? It's make mistakes and all that stuff. But the reason is you will have to use these functions in your Node.js code. Okay, there's no, the UI is just for a reference and take it as a reference. But eventually when you're trying to insert, when you're trying to read rows from your Node.js code, these are the functions that you have to do. It's still better to write these things in the code versus writing it on the shell. But the reason I introduced this is so that you guys know which functions to use. Okay, now do you have to memorize them? No. You just need to understand if I'm performing my CRUD operations, I'm doing the create one. What options do I have? I have insert, insert one, insert many. If I'm doing the read, it's a find method. If I'm doing an update, it's update. If I'm deleting, it's remove. And then all you have to do is you can go in the documentation and look at the examples to kind of refresh your memory. How does it work and how do I do this? Okay. For example, insert one over here, it gives you all the example. You can insert all of these as an array, insert many, so it expects an array. And if you have an array within an array and you want to push a new element, they already have these things defined over here. To look at the example, looks like there's a keyword called $push that's going to add a new object within that array. So there are different options over here. But again, all of these are your shell commands, and we're going to be using the same functions when we get to Node.js on Saturday. Okay, that's why it is important to know these. Now, there's no official UI for MongoDB, but this is a third-party installation. It's called Robo3D. This is what MySQL Workbench is. Okay. Um, Similarly, you are going to go ahead and create a connection. So I did a, if you do a create connection, give it a name, don't have to change port and everything. So MongoDB is running listening on port number 27017 on your local host. Okay. Now go ahead and create this connection. You will see this connect and a screen will pop up. Before I go over there, remember just for you when you deploy, when you are using Heroku for your homework, Heroku uses, for MySQL, uses JawsDB, right? Everybody understand that? MongoDB support is also there for Heroku, and they call it MLab. MLab, okay? So you will see when you get to your homework part, you have to create a database for MongoDB in Heroku. It's called MLab. Instructions are there. But remember, if you want to connect to your Heroku database, you would create a connection over here. You will say create, enter your Heroku database details, and it will connect to your Heroku database. Okay, same as your MySQL, same as your JawsDB. But right now we'll do a local host. So when you go ahead and connect, you should come to this screen. And since I don't have a database, I deleted all my database. You should see your student database that you just created. Okay, so I'll quickly show you how to create a database over here. It's pretty easy actually. So you just right click, say create database. I'm going to create a school database. Okay, my database is created. The next thing I need to do is create a collection. So I'm going to right click, open this, go to my collections folder. Right now it should be empty. I'm going to go right click, create a collection, and I'm going to create a collection called teachers. Again, I am for collections. MongoDB follows the naming convention as plural, so that's why it's teachers. If it's a two-word, then you will use a camel casing. Okay, so I'm going to create. So my collection is created. I want to insert some documents in my collection. Right click, insert document. This screen shows up with parentheses. So I'm going to copy the data that I had from the previous one, which is going to be our JSON. Okay. So this is the data that I'm inserting. Pretty straightforward. They have a nice validate button. This will check if your JSON is valid. So make sure it is valid. Looks like it's good. I will go ahead and save. And this is going to go ahead and insert a document in my teachers collection. Okay. If you want to find, right click, view documents, your document shows up over here. Everything is there. Okay. I want to add multiple documents. This is a little bit tricky, but still, let me show you. So if I want to enter multiple documents at the same time, remember in the function, it has to be an array. This is the UI, so that's how they have done it. You can insert multiple documents just by a comma separated object. You don't need a square brackets like an array. So let's suppose, let me choose a different. So this is my first object. Okay, if I want to add my other object, it's not going to be an array. All I have to do is do a comma and then the second object. So for some reason, Robo3D follows this convention, but this is, they are going to insert it as an array, and it's going to have multiple objects. So go ahead and validate. Oh no, it's not validate. What am I missing? Let's see. Okay, let's see. 1 and 1. Oh, maybe I don't need a comma. Let's try that. Okay, so actually you don't even need a comma. So this is going to just keep adding your number of objects without the comma. Okay, so this is going to insert two documents, two separate documents in my teachers collection. Save. Let's go back here, right click, view documents, and there's my 3 ones. Okay, I want to update something. Edit document, and then update this to this thing. Save. Let's go back and look at this one. It's updated. Okay. Again, this is just for convenience. This will be helpful when you have your database on your Heroku, so that somebody is inserting, your code is inserting documents, you can go ahead and verify, right? This does not replace the queries and these things, because you still have to know which ones, because in your code this is what you have to write. Okay, this is more like a convenience. It's easy. If I want to delete something, I just have to do right click and delete document. Yes, document deleted. Delete my collection, right click, drop collection. Delete my database, right click, drop database, and this should be my database. Okay. So you should already see that. Go ahead and test it out. Make sure you understand this. Start your Robo3D, create a connection, make a database, insert some documents that you have already done in the previous activity. And make sure they're inserting. You can actually see. Again, this will be helpful when you are using Heroku and you can make a connection and see all those things over here. Okay, it's a pretty neat, simple UI. Again, it's more like a convenience, but you still need to learn or know all of these, because you're going to be using. On Saturday, we'll look at how do we connect this to our Node.js application, and we'll be using these things and eventually Mongoose. Let me go back here. Any questions? Everybody has Robo3D installed and running. Make a local host connection. Again, if your community edition, if this is not running, if you didn't do the brew services start and everything, you will get an error and your Robo3D is not going to run. Of course, the service has to be running. So make sure it's already running since you guys are already there. So I'm saying later on, if you shut down your service, you come to Robo3D, it's going to give you an error saying connection not found or something. Make sure the services are running. Okay. All right. Go ahead, complete the activity. Just work with this one. That should be it. And then on Saturday, we will look into Node.js and Mongo. All right. Questions? Yes.
What about the Compass Community application?
What? Compass?
Compass Community application that it does the same thing that we should start together with MongoDB.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there are different UIs. But you see, this one I just showed you. This one, it's free and it's more easy. Yeah, if it's a UI, I haven't used the Compass one, but if it's a UI from MongoDB, then it's the same thing. Yeah. Does it show up like this and you can insert and delete? I haven't tried this. I've tried this one. It's just easy. Okay, yeah, you can use. It's not the only one. There are different ones. This one is a little bit more easier. And again, the functionality is just so that you can view the documents that are there. You won't be using this to insert anything. It has to be your code eventually. All right. All right. That's all. I'll see you guys on Saturday.